Imagine this. You're learning new English words every day, memorizing grammar rules and trying your best to speak. But after months of effort, when you finally try to speak with a native speaker, you find yourself stuck. You can't express your thoughts smoothly, and the sentence you had in mind comes out broken and weird. Why does this happen? Why, despite all the hard work you're putting in, are you still not speaking English fluently? Grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and get ready, because in today's episode, we're going to reveal the real secret to mastering English in a way that will totally change the way you think about learning the language. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the English Learning Podcast. If you're new here, I'm Jack, and my guest is Julia. And today, we're diving into one of the biggest mistakes people make when learning English. And trust me, once you understand this, your English will improve faster than you think.
That sounds interesting, Jack. So what is this big mistake everyone's making?
Well, Julia, most learners focus too much on grammar rules, trying to get every sentence perfect before speaking. They spend too much time memorizing grammar charts and not enough time actually speaking the language. But here's the thing. Learning a language isn't about memorizing rules. It's about communicating. And making mistakes is a natural part of that process.
I see what you mean. So, instead of stressing over perfect grammar, it's better to just start speaking?
Exactly. In fact, overthinking grammar is one of the biggest barriers to fluency. If you're always worrying about making mistakes, you'll never have the courage to speak in the first place. Fluency isn't about perfection, it's about confidence and communication.
So, how do we fix this mistake? How do we focus more on speaking and communication?
Great question. The first step is to change your mindset. Stop thinking that you need to be perfect before speaking. Just speak as much as possible, even if you're not sure about the grammar. Mistakes are a key part of the process, and they help you learn. If you make a mistake, you'll learn from it and do better next time.
Wow, that makes so much sense. So we should be embracing mistakes instead of avoiding them. But Jack, what's the best way to practice speaking when we don't have a lot of people to speak to?
Another great point. One technique that really helps is to use language exchange apps like Tandem or HelloTalk. You can talk to native speakers or other learners, and you don't have to be afraid to make mistakes. Everyone is there to help each other learn.
That's really helpful. So, the key takeaway for today's episode is, don't let the fear of making mistakes stop you from speaking. Just dive in, start talking, and you'll see your English improve much faster.
Do you hear how the words connect? That's the key. That's right, there are 3 secret techniques that will seriously take your English to the next level. These are simple but extremely effective methods, and if you use them consistently, you'll see incredible improvement.
I can't wait to hear these. What's the first secret technique, Jack?
1. Immersion.
That's right, it is immersion. Surround yourself with English. Immersion means surrounding yourself with the language all the time. Think of how children learn their first language. They don't memorize grammar rules. They absorb the language from their environment. You can do the same with English.
So, even if we're not in an English-speaking country, we can still use immersion?
Exactly. In today's world, it's easier than ever. You can watch movies, TV shows, and YouTube videos in English. Listen to English podcasts, read books, and follow people on social media who post in English. It's like creating an English environment no matter where you are.
That's amazing. So, even if I don't understand everything at first, I'll still be learning, right?
Yes, exactly. You don't have to understand everything at once. The more you surround yourself with the language, the more your brain will start picking things up. Eventually, you'll understand the meanings of words and sentences without even thinking about it.
That sounds like such a natural way to learn.
It really is. Now, the second technique.
2. Speaking without fear.
All right. The biggest barrier to fluency is fear. Most people are afraid of making mistakes, especially when speaking. But here's the truth. If you don't speak, you won't improve. The key to fluency is to practice speaking as much as possible, even if you're not sure about your grammar.
But Jack, what if people don't understand me or laugh at me when I speak?
It's a common fear, but the truth is, people are not judging you the way you think. They just want to understand you, and most people appreciate when someone is making the effort to speak their language. Mistakes are natural, and it's better to speak and make mistakes than to never speak at all.
So speaking a lot and making mistakes is actually a good thing?
Exactly. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn and get better. Don't worry about being perfect, just focus on communicating.
That's such a great mindset to have. And what's the third technique, Jack?
3. Active listening and shadowing.
This technique combines two powerful skills: listening and speaking. Active listening means really paying attention to how native speakers speak, their rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation. Then you practice by shadowing them, which means repeating exactly what they say as they say it.
Wait, so I repeat what I hear right away like an echo?
Yes, by doing this, you train your brain and mouth to use English more naturally. You'll get better at both listening and speaking at the same time. Over time, you'll start to sound more like a native speaker, and your speech will flow more naturally.
Now, let's dive deeper into the real reason why many learners struggle with speaking English, even after months of hard work.
That's a great point, Julia. A lot of learners feel stuck and don't know why.
Now, let's dive deeper into the real reason why many learners struggle with speaking English, even after months of hard work.
I love this topic. Thinking in English can really transform the way you speak.
That's right. So, let's talk about
The role of thinking in English.
One of the biggest barriers to fluency is that most learners translate directly from their native language to English. Let's take a common example. Imagine you're trying to say, "I'm hungry" in English, but in your mind, you're thinking in your native language first and then translating the words one by one. You might end up saying something awkward like, "I have hunger" or "I feel hunger." These sentences might make sense in your native language, but they sound strange in English.
"Oh, yes." I've heard so many learners say things like that. But why does this happen, Jack?
Great question. It's because they rely on direct translation rather than thinking in English itself. The key to speaking fluently is to stop translating and start thinking directly in English. This helps you form sentences naturally, as if English is your first language.
Practice 1. Thinking in English.
Let's make this practical. Jack, do you have an exercise for our listeners?
Absolutely. Let's do a quick exercise to practice thinking in English. Imagine you're at a coffee shop. I want you to describe what's happening around you in English. Don't translate from your native language, just try to observe and speak in English.
That's a great idea. Can you give some examples?
Sure. Here are a few. I'm sitting at a table with my coffee. The person next to me is reading a book. The barista is making a latte.
That sounds so natural. And the more they practice, the easier it will be, right?
Exactly. The more you practice thinking in English, the easier it will become to express yourself fluently.
The importance of listening and imitation.
Okay, Jack. So we've covered thinking in English. But what about listening?
Great transition, Julia. Another powerful tool for fluency is listening. To speak fluently, you need to expose yourself to as much spoken English as possible. Listening to native speakers, podcasts, TV shows, or even music in English helps your brain internalize how English sounds.
That's so true. When I was learning a new language, I noticed that just by listening a lot, I could start recognizing patterns naturally.
Exactly. When you hear phrases and expressions used naturally, you start to recognize patterns in the language. This makes it easier to use those same expressions in your own conversations.
But just listening isn't enough, right?
Right. You need to imitate what you hear. This is called shadowing. Shadowing means repeating what you hear in real time, trying to mimic the pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm of the speaker. It's a powerful technique that helps you sound more natural in English and boosts your confidence.
Practice 2. Shadowing.
Let's try it out. Jack, can you lead our listeners in a quick shadowing exercise?
Sure. I'll say a sentence, and I want you to repeat after me, trying to match my tone and rhythm. Ready? Here we go.
The weather is beautiful today, don't you think? Now you. The weather.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. Now you.
That was fun. Shadowing really helps learners improve their pronunciation and rhythm in English.
Exactly. The more you shadow, the more confident you'll feel speaking English naturally.
The power of real conversations.
So far, we've talked about thinking in English and shadowing. But what's the final step to fluency?
The most important tool of all, real conversations. The more you speak with others, the better you'll become. And here's the secret. You don't have to wait until you're perfect to start speaking. Every conversation is a chance to learn and improve.
I love that. It's all about building confidence and making speaking a habit.
Exactly. To sum up, the real secret to speaking English fluently isn't about memorizing words and grammar rules. It's about changing your mindset. Think in English, practice shadowing, and dive into real conversations.
That's the key. And with practice, fluency will come naturally.
Keep practicing, and in the next episode, we'll take your English to the next level with even more tips and strategies. And if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more lessons like this. Stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening, and as always, keep practicing and keep improving.
Thanks for listening, and as always, keep practicing and keep improving.